Welcome back to the Miracles and Grace podcast. I hope y'all enjoy part 2 of this awesome conversation with my sister, Annabelle Mayernick. We had 1 million questions about being single. Legit, that was the most asked question. And they ranged from like how to be content in singleness to how to wait well to like how do you know what to look for? We have had so many great conversations, honestly, since like you were in high school, just about dating and boys. And I've seen you through a lot of different seasons. I also have been through a lot of different seasons. I was thinking about this last night. Like when I think back on, obviously like 210 Josh, he was really the first guy that she had super seriously dated. And it was like a pretty quick process for them. And she moved here when she was 18. So like I didn't really see her through a lot of her dating relationships when she lived in Honduras, which is why I'm not including her in the examples that I'm giving. But when I think about me, you, and Miller Ann, also Josie hasn't dated anyone. But when I think about me, you, and Miller Ann and our different dating experiences through high school and college and then post-college, I was laughing to myself in the shower last night thinking about this in this conversation because Miller Ann is just so no nonsense. Mm-hmm. Like she's always been no nonsense. People are doing things that you're like, oh, that's just dumb teenagers. And she's like, yeah, those are really dumb teenagers. Like, and I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, me and you dabbled in a little bit more nonsense, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think back to college, and I've talked about that. I also just did a podcast with Sadie on the Whoa, That's Good podcast where I just talked a lot about like my personal college testimony and experience. And all the things that I took away from that and the ways that God has used it and refined me through that. But I've also seen you through similar experiences. I feel like in a lot of ways, I think you had like some dark parts of your college experience, and I'm not trying to speak for you, but it was like a little shorter lived than mine. I feel like most of my college culture was kind of dark, whereas yours was like freshman year and then all of your friends kind of pivoted throughout college and just like grew and grew and grew throughout your time. And then obviously now dating as an adult. Anyways, I say all of that to say I've seen you through a lot of different seasons of dating. One where it's like, it's just fun and the guys are around you and you're not like, I'm trying to find a Christian man. I mean, like a guy that loves God that's going to be my husband. To now being like, I'm 24. I want to get married. I want to start a family. That is the number one priority to me. You have some crazy date stories. And I think, too, like, that's probably an honest conversation that a lot of people would love to hear is, like, just dating in the Christian world can be so cringy.
For sure.
And you're, like, you're a Christian guy and you, like, check the Christian boxes on paper, but the way that you talk or the things that you do are, like, so unrelatable. I just think there's some things that you've experienced that you come back and I'm like, people just try so hard to come across as Christian. And it's like, you don't have to try to come across as Christian. Like,
we can be normal humans.
Yeah. And we can just talk about God like normal people.
Yeah.
Do you want to dive in on that?
Yeah, for sure. So for context, just kind of piggybacking off of you, went to Auburn. My first 2 years of college, me and my friends were just, living it up, doing the whole party, typical SEC experience. Freshman year, I was like all in with all the things, but very numb to my sin, I would say. Like, wasn't feeling guilty, wasn't feeling conviction, was just doing my thing. And then sophomore year, I was still doing all the same things, but I would wake up every Sunday morning and just feel so empty. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget end of my sophomore year, just like being on my knees in my room and being like, God, you have got to meet me here. Like, I'm so empty. I'm waking up with the same feeling every Sunday. And then I do the same thing the next weekend to try to get my fill again and to try to put a Band-Aid on the wound that I created last weekend. And
which also, I said this on Sadie's podcast too, so I don't mean to be too redundant, but we talked a lot about my college experience, which is similar in a lot of ways. And it's so not funny. Like, it's so fitting that the world like brands everything to still be like, I was thinking about when you're like on Sundays and everyone's like, Sunday scaries. Yeah. And it's like, no, it's actually so scary and like
the worst.
We're all depressed. So let's not laugh and say Sunday scaries. Like, none of us are well. You know what I mean?
Right.
Same with like you're saying, we do the whole like SEC sorority experience thing. And that's what I told her. I'm like, you're a senior in high school and you're like, oh my gosh, there's all these cute sorority girls that like take all these cute pictures in their colors and their like little diamonds, or I was a coyote, you're an 80 pie, like, and you create this idealized version of what that experience is like, because it's like a movie. It seems like a movie.
Yeah.
And then you step into this movie, and it's like, even when we're all in this space of extreme unhealth, we just laugh it off and say like, Sunday scaries.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm just like, the world brands that experience to be this like fun movie and then diminishes, like no one's going to look at each other and be like, I am having severe anxiety and I think I'm depressed every Sunday.
Right. For sure.
Because I'm like reeling from poor decisions that I made over the weekend. You know what I mean?
Totally. So many things that just feel normal because people tell you that's what your experience is going to be. But then when you take a step back, even small things, like I look back now and I'm like, wait, we were yelling in chapter one day because of t-shirts. Like the t-shirt logo design was off. I'm like, but in the moment you're like, oh, yeah, the t-shirt, like, you know what I mean?
Like, I paid $25 for that and the blue's wrong.
Right. It's just crazy.
It's so stupid.
Anywho, so we'll never forget just being on my knees my freshman year or my sophomore year, being like, God, you've got to come meet me in this. I'm so empty. I'm at the end of myself. Like, you've got to come and meet me. And the immediate joy and peace I was met with in that moment, like, it sounds cliche and you hear people say that all the time. It was indescribable, to the point where I was like, I still get teary talking about it. If I was trying to get my fill for 2 years and couldn't through all these other avenues, and then in 1 second of praying that God would come and meet me, was met with that much joy and peace, like, that was it for me. I was like, I'm in, I'm done. And so from there, my junior and senior year, I would say, were just marked by a lot of like growth and learning. And I look back with like such fond memories from those 2 years. Like, it's not like I look back and have negative associations with them, because I learned so much and I grew so much. And that's like, I look back sometimes and I'm like, golly, my fire was burning so bright then. Like, I need the level of fire that I had in that season of my life. I think with growing and learning a lot, it was overconsumption. Like, listening to all the podcasts, all the books, all the sermons, especially about dating. And so I think I went from my freshman and sophomore year not really even looking for like a Christian guy. Like, that wasn't my standard. And talked to guys that just spiritual growth was not a priority. And then being so ingrained in the church junior and senior year, and there being so much hyperfixation on like evaluate. Like, you need to evaluate so that you can find your husband. And I think because of that, dating just turned miserable, because you would go on a date with somebody and you're having preached at you, evaluate, look for all these characteristics, look for this and that. And if they don't have this, then like run for the hills. And it's like, you're sitting across from someone who's so wonderful that God has created with passions and dreams and all these things that you can't even like focus on getting to know them and hearing about them, because you're so focused on like evaluating and figuring out if they're marriage material.
Yeah. And also I feel like you overanalyze small actions as reflections of bigger issues. Like, you're like, oh my gosh, they didn't say thank you to the waitress. Does he lack gratitude? You know what I mean? Like,
right. And so me and all my friends, I would say, just went through a period where it was like, there was this pressure to know if we were going to marry a guy before we like went on the first date. And which is so dumb, because you don't know the person. Like, how would you know if they have the qualities of what you want in a husband when you know nothing about them? Yeah. Even after the first few dates, it's like, that is the whole point of dating, is to see if they could be your spouse. And so maybe it's you date for a few months and you figure it out that they're not the one. Okay, you break up and you move on. But I think what I'm learning is, because I've watched this play out, even being back in Nashville and like walking with friends who are going on first dates. It's like, this pressure to know if they're your husband off the bat is crazy. But I think what it's rooted in is our culture. We love certainty and we love control. Like, we have never craved it as much as we do right now, because we have answers for everything at our fingertips. We love to know we want to know what the outcome is before we walk into something, which I think keeps us from stepping out in faith in so many other areas of our walk. But specifically in dating, I think a lot of Christians don't want to date because they're like, what if they're not my husband?
Yeah.
And I don't know that from the first date.
Do you also, can I pose a quick question here?
Yeah.
I'm curious because the time that I dated in feels different, especially now with like AI. I was thinking about everything being done at max efficiency too. Do you ever feel like there's a piece of you or that you see in your community who is also single of like, I don't want to waste any time on someone that's not my husband because I have an end goal that I'm trying to get to at max efficiency?
Yes. But then I think because of that, dating becomes like this robotic process that you just try to move through at this. And that's not how it works because we're human.
Yeah.
We're humans trying to make it work, and there's no formula. There's no robotic way of doing things. It's like you're sitting across from someone else that hopefully is pursuing Jesus, but also like they have sin. And there are going to be things that you have to work through. And it might not be this like straight line. We start dating, they're perfect, and then we get married. Actually, it's not going to be that way.
Yeah.
Because we're human. And so I think acknowledging that dating is a faith walk has totally changed my perspective on it, because I'm like, okay, this is an area where I'm wanting control and I'm wanting certainty of how the situation is going to turn out. And I'm actually honoring God by being like, hey, I'm going to step into this and trust that you're going to guide my steps. I'm going to trust that I have the Holy Spirit inside of me that is going to tell me if this thing needs to end.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, so many people get so caught up in micromanaging everything, every part of their relationship, that they can't even enjoy the person that they're sitting across from.
Yeah.
And just over the past 6 months, dating has been so much more pleasant because I'm like, there's a 50-50 shot that you're my husband. That's not to say I'm going to go out.
Maybe not 50-50, but there's a shot.
No, but every time that you
it's
go
either
out
yes
with someone,
or no.
it's a
Yeah,
yes
that's
or a
true.
no.
That's true.
And when you trust that like God's going to align your steps, he's going to show you if something is meant to be or not in his timing, then you're able to walk through door after door and just let him close and open doors as he wants to, and then actually enjoy the person that you're sitting across from and not feel the weight of feeling like you have to decide if you want to marry him on the first date.
Yeah.
And
it should be like equal parts enjoyment and evaluation.
Totally. With that being said, well, first let me say this. Our dad has done a deep dive on Mother Teresa. He's been like learning about her and her life and all the things. And one story that he's told us that has stuck with me is someone came to her and was like, hey, will you please pray for clarity for me over this thing? And she responded and was like, I will absolutely not pray for clarity for you. I will pray for faith. And I thought that was so good, and honestly applies to so many things in our lives that we have to have faith for. We want clarity about everything. And it's like, what if actually what God is wanting to grow through your dating experience is like a deeper trust in him, and trusting that he's going to walk with you in it. And he might not give you the answers exactly when you want them, but like he will. He's not going to let you marry someone that you're not supposed to marry if you are open to his will and if you're asking him to light the way for you. That being said, I also know, I feel like in this, I'm speaking to a really specific group of people that don't date freely. Like, dating is a miserable experience for you. You put so much pressure on it. You can't enjoy the people that you're sitting in front of. I know there's also probably a group of people that are listening to this that a guy's walk with Jesus is not at the forefront of your mind when you're dating them. And I also want to speak to that too, because it is so important. And I think there's a way to do both, like you said, to evaluate and also just to be able to enjoy dating. Enjoy going to dinner, enjoy going to a movie or golf or whatever, and like enjoying to get to know the person in front of you. But I was reading, I never finished this book, but there was a book about marriage, probably when I was reading all the books, that said your marriage either becomes the cross that you carry or the thing that helps you carry your crosses. And
so good.
Looking at mom and dad right now and what our family is walking through, like I can't imagine if on top of the cross of ALS that they were carrying, if their marriage was also a cross that they were carrying.
Yeah.
And I'm actually watching their marriage be the thing that is allowing them to carry the cross of ALS.
Yeah.
And when you get married, it feels blissful and lighthearted and all the things, and you don't think about the moments where life is going to hit hard, but life will hit hard. Yeah. Like, we are promised persecution. We are promised suffering. That might look different for you than it's looked for us. Probably will. But it matters. Yeah. And I guess all I'm trying to say by all of this is I just want to see a world in which Christian dating is like middle of the line. Christians are supposed to be living in the most freedom out of all humans living on the earth. And that includes dating. Yeah. So, like, what does it look like to date in a way that's intentional, but that you also just are open-handed with it and trust God and don't freak out?
Yeah.
And you don't have answers.
Good. 2 things I want to say on that. Number 1, as you're talking about mom and dad's marriage and it not being their cross on top of ALS, I completely agree. And I just want to say, just because their marriage is not the cross that they're bearing doesn't mean that their marriage is perfect or that they don't argue and that they don't butt heads. And I mean, even through ALS, it's like, yeah, my mom serves my dad so beautifully, but it's like he's navigating a terminal illness and losing all of these capabilities that he's always had. And every human does things in a particular way. And he's now relying on someone else to do things for him in a way that he's always done them a certain way. And she doesn't know exactly. I feel like she's obviously learned over time how to do them, but it's like, you know, they've butted heads over the way that he likes to eat his food. And like, he mixes food or doesn't mix food or how he likes his socks put on. And I just think it's good to say, like, I know that's been a hard learning curve for them, obviously. And at the end of the day, even through the hard things you go through, I think what makes marriage not a cross for you is just that you choose each other at the end of the day. Through all the conflict that you have and through all the times that you butt heads and argue or whatever or disagree on things, like, at the end of the day, you still come back to each other. You're like, and even if I'm frustrated with you in this moment, I still choose you, and we're both still pursuing Jesus. And so I just wanted to say, like, I don't want people to listen to this and be like, oh, is my marriage a cross? Because it's hard. Their marriage is hard too. They just both love Jesus and are doing their best to serve each other and love each other well in this season and asking him for his strength to fill them in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for saying that. And also, I mean, that could probably be a whole separate podcast episode in itself, because I know personally I've talked to ambassadors and friends that have walked through really hard stuff in marriage, and they're like, why does it look like every other Christian couple doesn't have problems? Right. And I'm like, I feel so privileged to have talked to you, to talk to Mom, to talk to Tuta, to talk to Millerian, and y'all be so open about your marriage-ish. Yeah. Because I'm like, because everybody has it. Yeah. Yes. Every and why do we as Christians feel like we have to put on this persona that everything, including our marriage, I'm speaking as if I'm married. Perfect. But
no, but you are watching as a bystander, and single people also expect that of their marriage because that's what's portrayed and it's not real. Yeah. And marriage is awesome and it's so fun and it's beautiful. And I literally thought yesterday we were on a walk as a family. We were walking with our kids, like, through our neighborhood on a walk as a family. And I thought, like, man, I don't know that I've ever felt more joy than, like, I do in this season. It's also really freaking hard, but it's like, I love my marriage. I love my family. I love the season I'm in. It's a really hard season and I love it. And it is so joyful. But I just obviously always want to be a source of reality for people who listen, whether you're single and hoping to get married one day or married and being like, why does it feel like nobody else struggles with the things that I struggle with? That like, actually everybody struggles with that stuff. It's all normal. I shouldn't say all that stuff. If there's something that's like a huge major red flag that needs to be addressed, it may not be something that everybody struggles with, but like conflict, butting heads, having different ways of doing things, him thinking his way is right, you think you're thinking your way is right, and not agreeing on the right way to do things, like that is the type of stuff that every couple has.
And can I just say with that, I think going back to what I was saying before about people speaking at you, like evaluate, that puts you in a position where you feel like, oh, if I'm the one evaluating, then I'm perfect. Like, I think it's really easy to slip into pride and being like, oh, well, I've got my ish together and I'm going to try to find somebody that like fits all my preferences. And I think that actually turns into it turns dating into like a consumption. It's like for your benefit.
Like you're the scientist and they're the specimen under a microscope that you're checking out, versus like we're both here. We're both humans. We may both be awesome humans and we're not good for each other.
Yeah.
But that's for both of us to consider. And
yeah,
that's a great point.
But I think it's been so refreshing to talk to all of our sisters and mom about, because y'all are so real, like I said, about y'all's things that are hard. And all of y'all's husbands love Jesus and like
are the best.
But I could probably tell you what every single one of theirs like
things that we bickered over.
Yeah. Or like ways that they don't always love you the best. And that has been so refreshing, because in dating, I'm like, yes, I want to, for the people on your DMs who asked like what to look for, I want to find a guy that like loves Jesus and also has a teachable spirit. But that doesn't mean they're going to be perfect. That's so good. And I think as Christians, not expecting perfectionism, because one, we're never going to find it. And every single person that we always talk about how you're choosing someone's sin. Yeah. You know, like whoever you marry is going to have sin, and it's just a matter of what that sin looks like. Yeah. So y'all modeled that really well.
Well, thank you. I also would encourage, like, if you are married and listening and you have single people in your life, something that I've tried to do with Annabelle when she's like evaluating, just to use the word we've been using, the guys that she's going out with in a healthy way, I try to help you make the evaluation healthy by like, sometimes you'll be like, well, he does this. And I'm like, Davey does that. That's just a guy thing. Like 90% of guys are going to do that. And it's just a way that we're made differently. And they just don't do that in the same way women do. Most men don't. And so it's, I think too, when you're saying like, I know what those things are, it's because like a lot of things that you say that you're like, I don't know about this. I'm like, Davey does that. It's not a deal breaker. Yeah. If you have 50 of the, if you have 50 of those things that you're like, everything he does drives me crazy. Right. Everything Davey does doesn't drive me crazy. There are some things that he does, but I'm like, it's okay for you to have some of those things that you're like, yeah, he's forgetful, or I don't know, whatever. Yeah. Okay, I have a serious life hack for the moms out there. Y'all may have heard me talk about Spry on here or on my Instagram, but if you haven't, Spry makes non-toxic oral hygiene products that my kids absolutely love, and honestly, they've become my secret weapon. They've got toothpaste and mouthwash for both kids and adults, which Davey and I love too. All are made with xylitol, which helps zap those nasty bacteria in your mouth. And let me tell you, my kids are so obsessed with the taste that they will do just about anything for their Spry routine. Finish their dinner? Check. Pajamas on? Check. They're brushing and swishing without a fuss, and it's honestly a win-win for everyone. So if you want to make oral care a breeze and keep all the smiles in your family healthy, give Spry a try. You can use my code GRACE for 20% off site-wide at sprysmile.com/grace. That's sprysmile.com/grace, which is all linked in the show notes. Yeah, I think one other thing that we've had a lot of conversation about recently, and it came from a place of, you, Miller, and kind of did this when y'all graduated from Auburn, and we've laughed about it recently. And I think it's good that y'all have been in that place, because like I said, like you can speak to it. But I see a culture amongst especially young Christians of like feeling a pressure to talk a certain way and sound a certain way. And like in the things that you say in conversation, it's like you immediately know that someone's a Christian because they're saying things that you would only say if you're a Christian. And I'm not talking about like the way that you talk and use your tongue, like speaking life and honoring God. Like every Christian should do that. But it's in a way that it's almost like not normal for conversation. Like
it's like very specific spiritual lingo.
Yeah. Like Miller Ann one time, we've talked about this, but she's like, yeah, and Parker and these guys gathered and broke bread. And I said to her, this was in the season when y'all were doing that. And I'm like, what does that mean? Did they eat dinner together? And she's like, yeah, they got dinner. And I'm like, okay. It's not that, and even if like you say that one time, I think it's just this like culture of needing to talk that way. And number one, I think so it is a heart thing. Like at the end of the day, some people say things like that and it doesn't come at all from a place of like striving or feeling like they should talk a certain way. But I think for a lot of people, it does come from a place of striving. And I had a great conversation with a girl who was talking about how she is a youth group leader. And she was like, for the longest time, I actually lived in this place of bondage of feeling like I need to talk a certain way and use this language that's like very Christianese, if you will, and be on my face in worship. And she was like, it was such a great conversation. And she was like, I actually found freedom in just resting, like that I can just have a friendship with God and have a relationship with him. And my relationship with him doesn't have to look like my co-leader. Like, I actually don't have to be on my face in worship. If that feels true to my relationship with God, and that's like where in that moment, the Holy Spirit's like, humbles me to my knees, and I'm like, oh my gosh, God, I'm just like so in awe of you. Cool if it happens naturally, but so many people, she was like, I just think there's a culture of like feeling like you have to do all these things to have this perception that you have this relationship with God, when in reality, like, he wants you to come to him and rest.
Yeah.
And you don't have to try, you don't have to talk a certain way. And I think there's that piece to it that's like the striving piece. And also sometimes I hear people say things that make me a little sad in front of unbelievers, because I'm like, when you say, not to dog on breaking bread, that phrase, but like, we gathered and broke bread and celebrated the blood. Like, if you're not a Christian, you're like, oh, so you're in a cult. Weird. Yeah. Like, right. If you're a Christian, you know what the blood of Jesus represents. You know that it represents like that he died a horrible death for our sins. And you understand the sacrifice that like the blood stands for. But if not, and what's funny is one of our other friends that started a youth group said, I think we should stop playing the blood at youth group, because it's like so many high schoolers from all of these huge schools around Nashville, and a ton of them don't know Jesus. And if you walk into a youth group and everyone's like, the blood, the blood, the blood, you're like, and you don't know what the blood represents. You know what I mean? You're just like, why are we all singing the blood over and over? You know what I mean? And I love that song. That is literally one of my favorite worship songs, is the blood. But like, having the lens as a believer of like, these are spaces that it's more safe for me to talk about, like, use some of that terminology that is specific to Christianity. And like, if I say the blood, oh, I know you know Jesus, and I know that you know the context that I'm using it in, versus like when you're trying to reach a new believer, or you're around somebody that might not walk with Jesus or walk as close with Jesus, just being conscious of how that stuff sounds. And I think a lot of people aren't conscious of how it sounds because they live in a place of striving and being like, but you're not a believer, and I definitely want you to know that I'm a Christian. And if I say, and I also think it's subconscious, so it's even hard to say that. I don't think a lot of people, their conscious thought process is, I want you to know this, whatever. I think it's just like a deep-rooted thing, a deep-rooted seed and spirit of striving that people have, you know? And it's like my friend said, God actually wants you, in fact, to have the opposite, where you just get to be in freedom, and what your relationship and your form of worship and your communication with him looks like needs to feel true to you. And for me, like, what feels comfortable to me is to talk to God like I'm talking to somebody else, like I'm talking to you. And like, that's how I pray, is just, I'm talking to you just like I would talk to Annabelle. And for another person, it might look different. Like, we have a friend that reads the King James version. And I'm like, if that feeds your soul, and like, that is how you feel connected to God, is by reading the King James version, power to you, you know? Like, I think his heart's so pure. I've watched him read the King James version for 8 years. Yeah. That's the version he likes and that he feels connected to God through.
And if you use that language, because it genuinely is like an overflow of your relationship with God, it's like comes straight out from your heart to your mouth. Amazing. It's not that language is bad. It's just, if you're in a place like we were, where it was rooted in striving, like, ditch it at the door.
Yeah, totally. And the people you're around should make you feel like you can show up. And this whole thing makes me think of, may have mentioned this before, but the Bryce Crawford podcast with Sean Ryan. It's so good. And I think what makes it so good is that Sean Ryan is a new believer. I mean, there's a lot of things that make it so good. I think what makes it a really special podcast episode, and like one of the best ones I've listened to, is that Sean Ryan is a new believer. This is the first podcast of him I've ever listened to. I'd never actually heard of him before, but this podcast got sent to our small group, and he's like an ex-Navy guy. He just found God, and his language shows that he just found God. Like, clearly you can tell he's just had a lifetime of not walking with God. He curses like a sailor. And like, Bryce Crawford is so awesome and has this cool, like, awesome spiritually in the way that he communicates. And has this crazy testimony, but I loved watching the relationship between them, because Sean Ryan can drop like an F-bomb and Bryce isn't like, I thought you said you were a Christian. You know, he's like, he talks about going into these Satanist temples, and Sean Ryan's like, that's effing scary. And he's like, yeah, man, it was scary. You know? But I just loved watching their relationship, because I'm like, the way that he talks is just so honest, and he's talking to someone who's a new believer who also has a lot of things that, like, I think he just still has to learn because he's fresh in his faith. But watching their interaction was so refreshing, because I'm like, this is how we're called to love people. And this is what makes people want to know Jesus, is like the way that you're engaging with people who are not believers in a way that's like honest and loving and doesn't make what you have with God feel unattainable.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes me sad, is when people talk a certain way that it's like, well, I could never be a Christian because not only do I have to believe in God and learn the whole Bible, I have to talk like you, and I have like, and it's like, no, all you need is an encounter with God and a relationship with him, and you actually have freedom in that, and you let him transform the way that you talk to be pure, but it doesn't have to be like along a Christian script. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And as you were talking, I felt that in college, and obviously felt like that was something that God grew me out of. And then I was talking to a friend like a year ago who was like, I want to learn how to pray like you. Or I want to like learn how to use the words that you use in your prayer. And no, I'm not saying that in a prideful way. Just I think that really brought it to my attention that like that is something that a lot of believers feel, is this pressure to have all the words and do everything exactly right. But as you were talking, I was thinking about how striving breeds striving. So when you're around somebody that is striving, you are like, oh dang, I got to keep up.
Yeah.
And when you're someone that is at rest with you, your relationship with God, that breeds other people to be at rest, which is so beautiful. And so once I kind of had these epiphanies, I was like, God, I want to be the kind of friend that people just feel at rest with.
Yeah.
And there's one friend of ours that is so cool and relatable, and he used to be an alcoholic, and he's one of those people that you just talk to, and it's like, he's so real about his shortcomings and his mistakes and like all the ways that he is broken, and at the same time talks about how good God is, how he saved his life. And you walk away from a conversation with him and you're like, golly, like I want the gift that he's been given by God. And I think a lot of the time when we're striving, people don't walk away going, oh, I want what they have. They walk away feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough.
Totally.
And every time I talk to him, I tell you, I'm like, I want to be like that. Like I want to be so real and relatable, and just for my heart to be at rest with who I am, how God's created me, the grace that I've been given, for my identity not to be Annabelle, the girl that like she's Christian because she has all the lingo and worships this way.
Like you talk to her and you just know she's a Christian.
Right.
Because of the way you talk to her, and you know she's a Christian because she has peace.
Right. And because
not because she talks a certain way or sounds like that is so good. Thank you for sharing all of that. And one of the questions I was going to ask you to follow that up, you answered. I was going to say, like, from being in that season, and I say this, like, I think because when I got really close with God again, it was through, I've shared this before, but like when I became really good friends with Lauren, and she is that way, like she's so at rest. I don't really feel like I've ever done life, like especially as I've been older, with a community of people that talks a certain way. So that's not part of my story. Not to say like, well, not in a prideful way. Like I've never struggled with that. It's just like, I unfortunately was not in a church culture in college like you were. My life probably would have been a lot more fruitful if I was.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. So I was around people who were like on one super far extreme of the spectrum, like really not walking with Jesus at all. And then when I did find a community of people that were walking with Jesus, it was people like Lauren who are like so real and at rest. And so I think I kind of skipped that interim because that wasn't my experience in college. Again, for better or for worse, like there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful. The community that y'all had in college was absolutely incredible.
Totally.
And life-giving, and like people who genuinely really want to follow God's will for their life. They love God. They're after his heart. Like, and there's just that, I think that's like a very common subculture in Christian churches and stuff, especially amongst young people who are still like trying to find their way, and maybe not just young people, just Christians in general. But anyways, I say all of this to say, I love that that's part of your story because you can speak to it more from like what that transition was like for you. And I was going to ask you, like, what was it that, like, what was it that made you feel like you shifted from being in that place of striving to not, but you kind of answered it in the sense of saying like you found that rest with God, and then, and then you actually can be the person that inspires that rest to the people around you. And I don't know if you would add anything to that, but I was thinking, like, I think a lot of people would listen to this and might have the thought, I'm living in a community that I feel like I'm always trying to keep up. So what does it look like for me to get out of that? Because the people around me love Jesus.
Yeah.
So what does it look like for me? And to me, I mean, obviously you could leave that community and find a new one, but if you have a community that's following Jesus and like loves God, you actually could be the catalyst for people to find freedom. And like,
Yeah.
we don't have to talk like this. My worship looks so different than yours, and I am at peace with that, you know?
Totally. Yeah, I think exactly what you just said is so good. Like when we think of leadership, we think of somebody like on a stage or in front of a podium, like speaking about something, but modeling something by example is so powerful. So if you are looking around and you're like, dang, that's kind of the culture of my friend group, and I see a lot of striving, like you're saying, be the one, like be the catalyst that makes other people feel free in their relationship with the Lord. And I'll never forget one of my friends in college during this whole period, she looked at me and she was like, why do you feel the pressure to use all those words? She was like, do you say like and in our conversations together? And I was like, yeah. She was like, then say that in your prayer. And she was the one that really taught me in prayer specifically that it is more of a conversation than it is this like performative thing. And anyone can be that friend to other people. And that is like I'm saying, freedom breeds freedom. So if the more you do that, other people are going to want it, because who doesn't want freedom, you know?
Yeah. I've had that conversation with people too over the years. Someone very close to me always asks if their prayer sounds good. For years would ask that, and I would always be like, if it came from your lips to God's ears, then it sounded good.
Yeah.
Like, if you were talking to God from an earnest place in your heart, then it was a good prayer.
Yeah.
And that is my answer. I'm not going to make one comment about like a big word that you used, or you said hedge of protection. Bonus points.
Let's go,
like,
right.
You know what I mean? It's like, if you were talking from an earnest place in your heart to God, then it was a good prayer. It was good to me. It was good to God. And it doesn't really matter if it was good to anybody else.
And if you showed up and said, God, I feel like crap today, that's just as great of a prayer. Actually, probably better, because
it's a more honest prayer than a lot of the,
Yeah. But one point I just wanted to make, what you were saying earlier about interacting with non-believers. Like, there is a verse in the Bible that says, I think it's Paul talking. He's like, to a Jew, I became a Jew. To a Gentile, I became a Gentile in order to win as many people over to the gospel as possible, basically. And that's not to say that we change ourselves. We change, like, we talk in a way that's not honoring to God in order to win people over to Jesus. But it's basically just like, have feel of who you're talking to. If they're going to be turned off by language that you're using, if that is going to make them hesitant to follow Jesus, like, be relatable.
Dang, that's so good.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
And there's the scripture to back it up.
We love a scripture reference.
Okay, one other really quick concept that I wanted to talk about, because I don't know if you coined this term, but I have enjoyed watching you navigate this in dating, is FOBO. Did you make that up, or did that come from somewhere?
I think I can give credit to JP Pagluda.
Okay.
I think he was the one that coined it, but.
Great. Will you just talk about that?
Yeah, sure can. Basically, there's this concept, FOBO, fear of better options, that I think is wreaking havoc on Christian dating. I really do.
No, totally.
Because we have all dating options. We have so many dating options right in front of our face all the time. You have social media. You have dating apps. Like, it has never been easier to see all of the options of people that you could potentially end up with than it is right now. And the whole concept is the fear, and it is, oh, well, what if there's someone else better out there for me? And the reality is there might be. And that's the whole point of commitment in entering into a covenant of marriage, is you are choosing to marry someone with the knowledge that there might be someone out there in the other 7 billion people in the world that might be like better suited for you. but that's the point of commitment.
And I'm a firm believer that you could marry multiple people that are walking the earth right now and lead a happy, fruitful, God-honoring life with multiple people that exist right now.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer, like, what's that book, The Sacred Search, that talks about soulmate, SOLE, versus soulmate, SOUL, saying, like, is there a soulmate out there for me, SOLE, a singular person that is my soulmate, and we're just wandering around until we bump into each other? Or is it a soulmate where it's like there are actually multiple SOUL, potential SOUL mates out there for you, that you could build a life that builds the kingdom and honors God and is God's will for you, you know? And I'm a believer in the latter. Like, I believe that there's multiple people out there that you could have a really awesome, fruitful marriage with. And it's not like you're wandering around wondering, is this the right one? Is this the only person on the planet that's for me? You know what I mean? And am I going to get it right or wrong? It's like, that's my opinion on that topic. But
yeah. And I think I've known this is a problem for a long time. I've seen it with friends. I've seen it in myself. Just this question of like, oh, what if there's someone else out there? And I think where I'm at now, and my biggest encouragement to people that feel like they're struggling with that, is get rid of whatever it is that's causing you to do that. If social media or dating apps is causing you to have this like addiction to variety mindset, get rid of them. Like, and I think there's so many things in our walks with God that we could say that about. Like, if your phone is ruining your attention span to where you can't spend time with Jesus, get a flip phone.
Yeah.
Like, these things that they're wreaking more havoc than we think, you know, and you might never be content in your relationship or your marriage if you are always wondering, oh, well, what about other people? And in that case, get rid of the things that are causing you to stumble. You know, like the Bible tells us to, what does it, cut off your left hand if it causes you to sin? I'm like, not that it's this big sin, but if it's causing you to struggle, like, get rid of whatever it is that's causing that, you know?
Yeah, that's so good. 2 more things on that. And then I have a closing question for you. One, you know, when I went on Sadie's podcast and I knew she was going to ask me the best piece of advice I'd ever been given. And I talked to you about this some, because the one that I would have given, Miller Ann gave on her podcast when she went on, well, that's good. And so I was like, what do I want to say? And one of the most freeing pieces of advice that I've been given is you're never stuck. Like, Mom has said that to me. And I do think there is like a lot of people, to your point, wanting to know like certainty and control. There's a lot of people who spin over where to go to college. Should I take this job? Should I move cities? What should I major in? And I think the seasons, like when it impacted me, when Mom told me that, was like when I committed to Tennessee. I literally chose to go to Tennessee for their nursing school because I thought that's what I wanted to do. And everyone was like, it's such a big deal to get in as a senior in high school. Cannot believe you got into their nursing school. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is this insane opportunity. I have to go. Like, this is a sign that I'm supposed to do nursing. So I committed to it, did 2 years of nursing school. And then I'm like, I don't think this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. But that was really scary. And I remember Mom saying, you're never stuck. Like, you're not stuck in this. Switch your major. If you hate your major and you're like, think I made the wrong decision, go to another year of school.
Yeah.
She's like, is that, obviously it's not ideal, but it's like, it frees you up to be like, okay, I'm not making a commitment for, like, I have options if I get into something and I'm like, oh, this isn't right either.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the next, you know? And obviously you should exercise discernment in all those situations. And like, I prayed through what my next major should be, ended up loving my next major. So grateful I made that decision. But I thought about that being my advice that I was going to give on the podcast. And I'm so grateful that I listened to this. But before I went on, I listened to the podcast that she just did with Sean and Andrew East. And they just wrote a book called The Courage to Commit. And I was so glad that I didn't give the advice, you're never stuck, because it literally would have been like, I mean, I don't know when my podcast will air, but like theirs was having the courage to commit to things. And mine would have been like, you're never stuck.
Commit to everything.
And I think there are situations where it's like, it's good to feel freedom and know it's okay. But listening to their podcast was so good too. And I think it specifically really applies for relationships. Of it's just talking about how like you have to have courage to commit to things, and good things come from commitment. And like how many people go into marriages with like a half committed mindset or like a you're not stuck mindset. That should not be your mindset in marriage unless you're in like a seriously abusive relationship. Obviously there's nuances to that, but like in marriage, I think people go into marriage even with like I'm mostly committing to this. But if it gets really hard, like they get in and they second guess and they're like, well, I didn't think it was going to be this. So
Yeah.
and the divorce rate's so high, and obviously I'll be the first one to validate that like marriage is hard. It's two humans who are sinful and broken in their nature getting married and living in a house together and making decisions together on everything. So of course it's hard. And listening to that podcast was so great because it was just talking about like the things that God can grow in you when you commit to something, even when it's really hard. And it makes me think of dating because I think there's a balance of knowing like, if you're in your head and you're like, I've been in a relationship for a year and I know this is not for me, but I've wasted this time and I feel stuck because I feel like now I just need to marry them. You're not stuck in that relationship. If that's not God's best for you, get out.
Yeah.
And if at some point in your life you're going to have to, if you want to get married and have a family, like you have to pick someone and commit to them. And there is so much good that comes out of commitment. It was a great podcast if you want to go listen, but I think it's just a great balance of both. And in relationships, to your point, like you have to commit at some point and stop looking left and right. That will rob you of your joy. And even when you get married, you could look around and be like, well, I was laughing with one of my friends, like when me and one of my best friends, we have a third best friend. And she said something like, yeah, sometimes me and my husband will argue and I'll think, oh, I bet her husband would never say that to her. And I was like, I've literally thought that same thing. And then I've had conversations with that third friend and she's like, of course we argue about that stuff. But the reality is it's just human nature to look left and right and look at other people and be like, well, it wouldn't be this way if I had chosen them or if I was dating this person or they probably have this person that this person doesn't. It's human nature and you have to actively fight it if you want to commit to a life with someone and build a family, you know?
Yeah. It's so good. So good to hear that from a married person so that when you, as a single person, when you go into marriage, you're not like, oh my gosh, did I pick the wrong one? It's like, those are universal. Those are the kind of things in marriage that I wish people talked about.
Yeah.
And were more real about, but.
Totally. That's so
good. For another time.
Okay, well, as a closing question, is there a miracle story in the Bible that you love that's your favorite or just that sticks out to you or maybe even like that's specifically speaking to you in this season?
God. I would say...
Also, just so you know, when I asked Dad this question, what his favorite miracle story is, he said, Jesus' death and resurrection. Like, that's the most you answer and no one can top it.
Right, yeah. Actually, yeah. When you asked me this, I was looking up miracles and I saw that and was like, that feels like a duh.
Right.
I love that he ran with it, though. That's really not super, like, deep. But I was reading the story of Peter walking on water this morning and I never realized that it was right after Jesus fed the 5,000. So he literally performs this crazy miracle where he feeds the 5,000 and then his disciples get on the boat and Peter's like, I'm going to walk to you, Jesus. Well, he starts walking and gets scared and that's when he starts sinking. And I was just thinking, like, isn't it crazy how we can watch God do a million miracles? We can watch him do a million crazy things. I mean, at this point, his disciples had been with him. They had been watching him do all these crazy things. And Jesus is literally saying, come to me. And he still gets afraid and starts sinking. And I just really related to that because even in our life, I'm like, there are so many ways that we're watching God work. And yet sometimes my first instinct is still doubt.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's so reflective of human nature. And someone had asked a question about that too. That basically was just talking about feeling shame about doubting God and feeling distant from God. And I think looking at the disciples and even like thinking about after Jesus died, the fact that so many of them were like, we didn't know him and denounced him, or afterwards when they saw him resurrected, like still couldn't, like wouldn't believe that it was him. We're like, we see you, but we have to touch your hands to believe it's you.
Yeah.
I think there's so many things in the Bible that you just look at and you're like, if the people that were the closest to you, the Bible says that all the books in the world could not contain the stories and the miracles that Jesus did. And if the people who were the closest to you that witnessed pretty much all of them still struggled with faith and doubt and fear, like let you see yourself in those people and be like, if they struggled with it, of course I'm going to struggle with it. And like God continued to love them and meet them. And he's like, yeah, touch my hands, you know?
Yeah.
So that's really good. And I think it's just encouraging to hear us say, I hope people listen to this and are encouraged by like, yeah, of course, when you go on Instagram and you post something encouraging, it's like, that's what we want. We want to go on and be encouraging and be a light to people, but we also are in a valley and we have doubts and we have struggles and we feel distant from God. I just hope that nobody ever looks at our family and thinks like they don't struggle with the same things that I struggle with, because we're human too and we do. And in those struggles, like I pray that we are always just a family that continues to turn back to him.
Yeah.
And go to him through it. So
when I think about just this podcast in general, I feel like we talked about so many different things.
Yeah.
That the root of them are just like freedom.
Yeah.
You know, like even the doubt conversation, we feel this pressure to like not have doubts and have it all figured out. There is freedom in knowing that like you're human. And even the disciples who watched a million of his miracles doubted. In dating, like the striving and all the things, like there is freedom. And I hope that people listening today just walk away and are like walking in more freedom because of the conversations we had. I feel like that was kind of a consistent
so good
theme.
Yeah, that's the prayer. That said, we hope you enjoyed listening. Annabelle, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. You are the best.
Love you, G.
I love you too.